Welcome to Real Estate Unlimited, your go-to podcast for all things real estate. I'm Bill Jones, an experienced real estate broker and auctioneer, and together with my wife Kelly, we've built a thriving real estate business in Tiffin and Findlay, Ohio. But enough about us, let's talk about why we're here. Whether you're buying or selling or simply curious about the real estate market, the Real Estate Unlimited podcast is designed for you. Each episode will bring you insightful interviews with industry professionals, from real estate agents, mortgage brokers, home inspectors, and home designers. We'll dive deep into the ins and outs of the market, offering tips, advice, and insider knowledge. Our goal is to make real estate accessible and engaging for everyone. We promise to keep things entertaining and educational with a conversational style that makes learning about real estate fun. Plus, we'll answer your questions so you can get the information you need. And for my fellow real estate agents out there, we'll have special segments just for you. We want to help you grow your business just as we've grown ours. From tips on client acquisition to the latest market trends, we've got you covered. Be sure to follow us on all the social media platforms for updates, short clips, and more. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, and of course you'll find the full episodes on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. Engage with us there, send us your questions, and let us know who you'd like to see as a guest on the next show. Be sure to tune into Real Estate Unlimited. We can't wait to take the real estate journey with you. We'll see you in the next episode.
Hello and welcome back to the Real Estate Unlimited podcast. My name's Sarah Steinmetz.
I'm Brian Schuby.
I'm Carrie Steele.
Bill Jones.
And we're the Jones Home Team.
Well, welcome back. This is episode number 4. They're a little bit delayed here, so when you get these here, they're about a week behind, so you'll have to forgive us with that if we do any specific dates or times. We got a big announcement coming up here. I've been sworn to secrecy. I'm not allowed to talk about it, but today we are talking about secret real estate websites, should you use them, escalation clauses, ShowingTime Feedback, and that's something specific for the agents and clients both then, so I'll expand on that more. Home warranties, should you get them or not? Home inspections, protecting yourself and why you should or should not get one. We got a couple other topics, see what kind of time we get in place. But first off, we'll start with the secret real estate websites. I want to get your guys' thoughts on, should somebody use them? Should they not? I guess what I mean by secret more so, I guess more specifically would be, should you pay? Should you pay a subscription? Should you pay a one-time fee? Not to put any websites necessarily on blast, but there's foreclosure.com, Realty Track, Home Finder, auction.com, myhousedeals.com, a couple of these different things. I'll pull these sites up if I can. I've had people over the years say, hey, I subscribe to this website. I'm not finding what I'm looking for. Like right now, the market's still tough. There's not a lot of homes out there, but should I subscribe to this website or something popped up? And generally, if you're listening, you can't see, but if you're watching, you can see. I went to like My House Deals, you went to Columbus, and it'll pull up a website, and it looks like a great deal on a house, but it doesn't necessarily give you a location or anything like that. Next thing that's going to pop up is going to be enter your information and maybe put a credit card in there. Should I maybe get that out? What's your guys' recommendation on that? Should we pay for this secret house, or is there any value to that?
I would say there's definitely not a secret website to find, foreclosures or anything on. A lot of times those foreclosure properties will still populate to Realtor.com or Zillow.com. There's definitely, that I have ever found, I don't think there's ever been a website where there's a property that, isn't available or easily accessible without a credit card, to the general public that you should ever need to pay for.
And a lot of those sites will populate like pre-foreclosure listings, which are houses that are not even on the market yet. And so then you're thinking, oh, look at this great deal, whatnot. They haven't even gone through the foreclosure process. I don't even know where they're getting this information from. And it's making it seem to the general consumer that this is a house that they can partake in trying to buy.
Yeah. That makes it difficult, too, because then we're on a wild goose chase trying to find a house that doesn't exist. And maybe it's just a matter of somebody missed one payment or just needs to pay their taxes and they're going to, but they haven't yet. And so then, consumers are reaching out to us trying to find this unicorn that doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and you get that too. Could you find out? And if it's an area we work, like a lot of times this house here then too, I don't know this one exactly, but a lot of times we can identify the house, but to your guys' point, if it's just they missed a payment or they're a little bit behind on their taxes, that's kind of a tough conversation. Hey, you thinking about selling? They're like, why are you even here?
Well, and to go into that even further, when it does become a foreclosure, then there's a process that even we as realtors have to go through.
Right.
So there are websites that we have to log into and create accounts in order to get to that. But that's more of making an offer, not finding out details about the home.
Right.
And I think, again, along with the websites, I mean, you obviously have your sheriff's auction properties too.
Sure.
And a lot of times, once those are empty, there's a lot of times where we as realtors actually can't even go view the property. You're purchasing that property sight unseen.
Yep.
Yeah, it makes it super tough then. And we do our best to, go find the houses, knock on doors, do whatever. But yeah, if they're a payment behind, the pre-foreclosure sales are just not necessarily a good way to go. But some of those sites too are I kind of more niche. They're looking at the home investor a lot of times, so the foreclosure sites or these hot deals or something like that. Doesn't really give you a true picture of like our most common Bob and Betty home buyer. They're not usually looking for that complete fixer-upper or gutted house. So I would vote that's probably not a great idea to pay for a website when you can sign up with even just one of our websites. It's a fantastic site. You can go look up for homes, costs you literally nothing other than a good conversation. Actually, it's probably even better to work with a good agent because then they can set you up with a custom search. So you're not just getting everything that's hitting the market. You're getting something that's dialed into what you're actually looking for and costs you nothing but, a conversation. Mm-hmm. So a little bit of time doing that. Carrie, you had mentioned this then too. It makes it hard. Some of these websites are literally just designed to be a capture funnel. And what I mean by that is like that it's online data aggregate. They're looking to catch a website or catch people's information and then turn around and sell it to us agents. So that turns into a harder thing for us then too. We get one of these referral sources that call us and say, hey, I've got Bob and Betty home buyer that you may or may not have already talked with then too. And they're just looking for a referral fee at that point. And then you're getting information from all these sites and, just makes it tough. So you're better to just call, I feel like, an agent from the get-go.
And then along with that, too, the more websites you put your information into, the more, they sometimes feed that to 3 or 4 different agents. So your phone's going to be blowing up all day. So It's one of those to find an agent that you feel comfortable working with and just contact them directly, which, will save you probably a crap ton of phone calls at the end of the day.
Don't be afraid to reach out to a realtor. Just call them directly because like we were talking before this podcast started, that some of these referral fees are 25, 30%, and that's nothing, Right. So people think, we make all this money, but realistically, after we pay some of those referral fees, there's not a whole lot left. So reaching out to your realtor directly or reaching out to 2 or 3 realtors and interviewing them can save everybody money in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back, go ahead.
If you're going the direct route to a realtor and not going through a random funnel with one of these websites and then getting turned to a realtor that way that works with that referral team that you might not like, and then that realtor want to work with, and then that realtor is blowing your phone up because they're supposed to be using you as the referral and contacting you because that's their job with the referral company.
That's right.
And you don't even want to work with this person. And so then it's kind of like a wild goose chase for no reason when if you know of a realtor or you know a realtor in your area, you can just reach out to them directly. They can get you set up and it just makes the whole process a lot more concise then.
Yeah, and of course we're all going to say that. We're real estate agents. Of course we're going to say call a real estate agent, but we don't mean it in that way as a self-serving, but just having bought homes, working in other markets, that it's truly a service to you as a buyer than to call a good agent. We talked in previous podcasts, interview an agent. Don't go with the first one. I got Realtor.com pulled up and there's Zillow and things like that. Another site that's maybe free, but they're going to sell your information. You're going to get, like Brian's point, 100 different agents calling you, and it's just whoever happens to be picking up the phone that day. It's not going to be a good agent in that market that's going to help you. Last point on that then too is it actually free. So you go to Zillow, Realtor.com, Trulia. Heck, even our website, it captures data. Your data is a valuable resource then too. It's not necessarily free. So they're taking your data and then selling it to all these websites. And that's why you start getting all the ads. You start talking about things or looking at things. That's what starts showing up in your feed. So it's not free. It maybe doesn't cost you, put your credit card in, but it's still costing you something. Like I said, the phones are always listening, I guess, right? Whether you're directly
really
putting in a search or not, they're getting to you. So here I got kind of a topic for you guys. I didn't really give you much of a heads up on this here, but I want your honest feedback. I want to paint a scenario. So this is good for the agents and our clients both then. So this would be something that they both need to take into context and really think about then. So showing feedback. So specifically the program we use is called ShowingTime. So just a little backstory with how that works to the individual. So if we're showing a house, we have a program we schedule showings through. And that will also inquire for feedback. So that's looking for feedback from us agents, or more directly from our clients on the seller's home. So what did we think of that 123 Main Street listing? They want feedback. And a lot of times it's asking, what was the condition like? What was the pricing like? What was, anything good or bad? Rate it 1 through 5 or 1 through 10, or that's 1 through 5, I believe. And the seller, myself included as a seller's agent, we try to get that feedback because the sellers want to hear that. What's good, what's bad, what does somebody like about our house or not? So my question is, do you guys, not to put you on the spot, but do you guys ask your client what you want your feedback to be? And I'll circle back to this because I'll paint a scenario. So if I'm a seller and say we got a negotiation going on a deal then. So I'm selling my 123 Main Street, and the buyer, which we're representing then, doesn't like the price or doesn't like something about the house then. So we as the agent put that feedback into ShowingTime. The seller, through the course of negotiation, just won't give it all. Just being super hard, which we've all had that. So they don't like the offer price. They don't like whatever. They want full price. They're stuck at their number. So we get through that, and maybe we get to inspections and something comes up, and the seller won't give it all on that then either. It's just stuck. And then we get to the closing table. Seller talking to the buyer and says, I probably would have given a little, or would have fixed that thing, whatever, but I was so mad about that feedback you gave me. You were talking about my house that I put all my blood, sweat, and tears into, or whatever the case may be. You didn't like my price or whatever. So that feedback, I've had this happen, has adversely affected the negotiation or the entire deal then. So that's, I guess, kind of my question or thought as far as like when you're talking to your buyer or, you the client then, do you want to talk with your agent or have a good conversation about what do you want to put in there? Some thought or strategy you need to go into your feedback? Because I feel like that could, in that scenario at the one closing table, that did adversely affect the entire deal because we gave negative feedback. The person was being honest, they weren't being mean, but it just made for a rough deal altogether then. So,
and I think on the flip side of that, you really got to watch what you say too, because if you give too much positive feedback, then then the sellers obviously know how interested you are in that house, and maybe they're a little less willing to negotiate because they know how much or how interested you are, or how badly you want to purchase that property.
That's something too where I try to keep, as a buyer's agent, my feedback pretty vague, but still give enough information for it to be useful. So if they do like the home and they're considering an offer, I will really just say that. Buyer enjoyed the home, showing went great, we are considering an offer. Or we have more showings scheduled, can't give solid feedback at this moment. Right. Hopefully at a later date I will have a more solid reaction from the buyer, but at this time I don't. Just so that I'm not giving them too much and then they can't really run with it either way and either have any feelings about it, but at least can understand that the showing went okay, we did show the house, and this is where we're at right now.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I usually, if my buyer shows any type of interest or any possibility of maybe putting an offer in, I'm usually pretty vague as well. If, there's a huge concern with the buyer and they're not interested at all, depending on what that is, I usually try to present that to the seller in the best possible way, just so that way it's useful to them. If something needs to be fixed or changed or something like that, obviously that's helpful to the seller to be able to get that done effectively then.
No, he's 100% right, especially if you have a really poor feedback and it's going to hurt, to the core. So something like an odor that the sellers have gone nose blind to, but everybody walks in that door and says, I was just put off by how bad the smell was in there. So you want to address
cats,
it without,
cigarettes, whatever.
Right. Yeah. So you want to address it, but address it in a way that's not going to,
That's appropriate.
And sometimes there's instances where sellers need to hear or see some of that feedback because, like Carrie said, they're blind to it. They don't see it or they don't smell it. And so, seeing multiple people say the same thing, I think that helps, especially on the real estate side, to be able to talk some sense into sellers when they're crazy on some of their, what they're expecting.
Yeah, but like Sierra said, give feedback that's appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I think it's a good thing to ask your person, it's probably a good conversation to have. What kind of strategy do we want to have in this feedback? Do you want to be that blunt? Is this for sure something you're not going to buy? Because if I blow them up with some negative feedback, you for sure don't want this house, right? So make sure you have that conversation with your client then, and use other agents doing that. I would suggest that to make sure that you're making sure you leave just eviscerating feedback then. I don't think that seller's going to be real apt. Wait, was that guy that said?
Yeah.
Right. That's another thing too. If there's like multiple things about a home that's just not going to work for the buyer, and maybe they're not all major red flags, but it's not going to work. I feel like going back to the vague thing, just saying didn't fit the buyer's needs, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
That may be, just so that you're not taking it to the next level when they're not going to move forward with that home anyways, and it wasn't an odor or something that was blaring when you first walked into the home.
That's a great
just
point.
so that there's not an extra level of unnecessary commentary at that point too.
Yeah, because in that too, you're working with not just your buyers, but you're working with the agent on the other end of that. So maybe that client doesn't end up buying, but now you're presenting another buyer with the opportunity to see this house, and you've just given harsh feedback in a way that didn't really have to be presented that way.
Right.
And now you need to, approach the bench, so to speak, and beg for mercy and be like,
approach the bench.
We really do want this house.
But and not every home is for every person. A lot of sellers get hung up on, I want feedback. I want to know what their thoughts are. Well, it's just wasn't the home for them. Nothing against your home. Maybe the price was fine. The condition was fine. The location was good. It just didn't sing to them. So it wasn't what they were looking for. So yeah, so don't get upset if you don't get feedback or real detailed feedback. But then on the buy side, that really, ever since that time, that's really made me think, man, I really got to be careful about what I'm putting in for this feedback. So,
Absolutely.
But I kind of stole that one from Byron Lazine and Nicole White, their podcast then too. So they're like my best friends. They liked my one comment the one time. So they got me thinking about that. I'm like, yeah, I did have one of those scenarios. So, all right, we'll move on. Got a couple other topics. We'll move on here to home warranty. We'll dive deeper into both of these, home warranties and inspections at some point. But just real briefly, home warranties. Should you get a home warranty? Yes or no? What's your thoughts? What's it cost? What's it cover? Should I get one?
I think a lot of that, the way I kind of present it to clients is a lot of it depends on their financial situation. If it's a first-time home buyer who doesn't really have a whole lot of money, maybe that's something you take more into consideration on getting to help cover some of those costs, if something were to happen. If it's a better situated financially couple, an older couple or somebody who's been saving up, has a lot of money, maybe they don't look into that as much or consider that as much, just because they have the funds. If there is an emergency or something happens, they're able to utilize, their savings to pay for a new AC unit or a hot water heater or something like that.
Especially if it's something that, if it's a very solid home, and obviously things happen, but for the most part, they're not too worried about even needing to utilize that home warranty as well. I'd say it's very situational. And I tell my buyers, honestly, I'm probably 50% of my buyers do purchase one or have the seller pay for it, and then 50% are like, no, we don't need to even mess with that. It's incredibly situational based on what their home they're going to be purchasing and their situation as well. So, and
for me, when I sold my house, I bought a home warranty. When I bought my house, I took the home warranty. So I think it is situational. It is up, to the buyers and where they're at financially. But I also think it covers the sellers as well. And if you have a home where a lot of the stuff is past its lifetime and getting close to the end of its life, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea, just as almost like a gap insurance to protect the buyers and sellers during that time. But I agree with Sierra that it is 100% situational.
I always refer to it as like a really good safety blanket, just because, like I said, things happen, you never know, and it might have been something that you weren't even worried about, and then all of a sudden your furnace or your oven went out or something like that, and then you need that covered. So it's a great backup plan a little bit. Yeah. Obviously it's basic coverage and whatnot, but it does help you out greatly if that becomes your situation then.
Especially with most of the policies only costing, $400 to $500.
Right.
For the $400 or $500 you're asking the seller or yourself to spend to maybe save, $1,000 on a hot water heater, $15 on a hot water heater. I actually just had a client last week. Their AC went out and they didn't get it fully covered, but I think the home warranty company covered up to like $2,500 towards the new AC unit then. So again, I think it just depends on the buyer and their situation, and again, kind of like what Sierra said, the particular home they're buying, and are the appliances newer, are they older, those types of things.
Yeah, and not everything lasts forever. Your furnace isn't going to last forever. Your hot water heater isn't going to last forever. The situations I love, especially, we get this in Findlay a lot, those homes that are 20, 25 years old, something like that, and they're like, well, it's a new home. Well, it's newer, but you're right at the point where the furnace is ready to conk. The roof definitely needs to replace. A hot water heater should have been replaced 10 years ago. So, yeah, it's a new home, but it's not.
The lifespan on those types of things isn't necessarily equating with that newer build then.
Right. So a yes and no answer. I guess it's situational, or depends what your financing looks like. Then we'll dive a lot more into that. We'll bring somebody in that's a home warranty expert, I guess, at some point then too. We'll lead right into home inspections then. Again, a broad topic, but I think that kind of falls right into that. If you're doing your 20-year-old home and doing an inspection, some of those things could get flagged right then and there. Yeah, the furnace is beyond life expectancy. The hot water heater's already leaking. So you can avoid some of that. So we always recommend you do get a home inspection, but again, it's up to the situation or what the negotiation looks like. But you guys feel like that plays hand in hand with home warranty for the most part? If you get a home inspection that's bad, maybe some of it could get covered by.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a huge thing too with inspections. My first year, the market was just insane, so hot. Everything was flying off the shelf, and if you had a home inspection, half the time they were like, well, this one doesn't have a home inspection, so goodbye, which is just a crazy world we were living in too, and hard, especially for first-time home buyers that want to make sure that they're making this investment a good investment, and they're looking at the odds of them trying to get this and knowing that having that home inspection right there might just destroy the whole offer itself, which is insane. But luckily, we're kind of moving away from that.
Sure.
And with homes staying on the market a little bit longer, you do have the option. Obviously, we always recommend it, but for a while there, it was hard to get an offer accepted with any inspections checked on that list.
Yeah, especially home inspections, home warranty, whatever. Good luck getting that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. It has, I think, slowed down a little bit from that then too. We didn't get into escalation clauses. I almost skipped right over that then too. So we want to talk not so timely right now as the market has softened a little bit. And this again is a bigger topic. We'll cover this in more detail future. But if you've never heard of an escalation clause, as one of you guys want to discuss what that looks like, then
do you want me to read it word for word from the script?
Yes, I would like to know the exact yes.
What is an escalation clause? An escalation clause allows a buyer to automatically increase their offer if there's a higher competing bid.
Thank you, Carrie.
You're welcome.
We've all used them. We've used them to a lot of success a lot of times then too. But what's the situation, or how do you guys employ those?
Going back to that time when I had first started, and you needed to have the cleanest offer possible, and you needed to have every contingency plan in place. These were kind of my bread and butter that year because it was so competitive. And with an escalation clause, essentially you bring forward your offer price where you want to be. But if you have the option to have a higher price that you're willing to pay for it, you can implement an escalation clause, and that essentially, if there is another offer that's higher than yours up to this amount, so let's say you're offering $150, but you're willing to pay $156.
Sure.
Someone else offers $153. If you are implementing an escalation clause, it usually goes up by $500 or $1,000 over that next highest competing offer. So then you would come in at $153.5, and then at that point beat out that competing offer price-wise. And again, sellers can still say, no, I like the other one because of this reason or another, but that puts your price point above that without having to come back with the highest and best or anything like that. That is your highest and best that you're willing to go up to, and that gives you that extra blanket if another offer were to come in and it's higher, and then that puts you just above it, and that helps your buyer in that situation to hopefully get their offer accepted instead.
I think it's important to add to that as well that's also the net price. So if that original offer was asking for, $3,000 or $3,500 in closing costs, that original offer would still be $150. So it wouldn't necessarily jump up to their $153,000. It may jump up to $155 or whatever that is minus the net, I guess you would per se. And then also to that, it is still the listing agent still needs to present proof to that buyer's agent that why the escalation clause was initiated then as well.
Mm-hmm. And then I'll play devil's advocate, because then what happens if somebody overpays for a house?
Yeah.
They say, well, I'm willing to pay up to $200,000 for the $150, whatever the number was. Then what happens? Are they afraid to do that? And can they do that?
Right.
At the end of the day, again, it's still contingent upon the appraisal then as well. So that house still needs to appraise for that higher amount that you're willing to, that the escalation clause went up to then as well.
And like you were saying, that helps your buyer not to just go in at $200,000. Then you start at an appropriate price point, and then you can build up from there if needed. It's kind of a fallback.
Well, yeah, you don't want to cost your buyer money. Like, our job is to protect our buyers or sellers. And if you can get them the house for less, like, that's one of the things that we do well.
Without just having to overshoot and hope that it works out.
Right.
When you could have saved $10,000 or whatever it is because you put in the escalation clause and then you were just right above what that next step was then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think there's an appropriate time then to utilize an escalation clause and not utilize one.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking at it and there's multiple offers, I would say that would be an appropriate time to look at
Absolutely.
it. However, just throwing it in on an offer, not knowing if there's multiple offers, that could hurt your buyer then as well, because if there's no other offers, that seller says, well, hey, look, they're willing to pay.
I know what they'll pay.
Yeah, I know what
exactly.
they're willing to pay. That seller may come back and say, hey, look, this is what you're willing to pay. That's what we want. And so, I guess situation, again, just like the home warranties, I think the escalation clauses are situational then as well.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. I forgot to mention that this is mostly utilized in a situation where there's going to be multiple offers. This is a very competitive home, and you don't know
Not
where
the one
you're
that's
going
been
to...
sitting on the market for
No,
6
but
months.
a couple years
Yeah.
ago, it was essential. I mean, there was one over by the park. I don't remember what the address was, but that one was definitely where I think there were multiple agents with multiple escalation clauses. So that would have been tough for that selling agent to look through all that stuff.
It's a lot of math.
Yeah, a lot of math.
That is a lot of
Your
math.
net sheet is your best friend.
Yeah. So that is the one thing you guys all kind of hit on this. It's situational for sure. You want to make sure you're putting it in the right offer scenario, I guess, then too. And it's not just always price. A lot of time people, what's going to get me that house? It's not just the top dollar. Going back to, it does have inspections and a home warranty and a bunch of other things involved in it then too, or is it just price? And then Brian, you hit it perfectly. The net dollar makes a big part of it then too. When we get this a lot of times with some sellers, they get so worried about who's paying what closing costs or what. It doesn't. It's the net dollar at the end of the day. So you're selling your house. What number are you happy with selling your home? And that'll factor in then. So if you're asking for a bunch of concessions, that all falls in place too. So pretty big topic there, and it's not for every scenario. And make sure, and we have had people get the home and save themselves thousands of dollars in the end, where they wouldn't have got it had they not included an escalation clause, but didn't, to Sierra's point, give away the whole farm, saying overpay by $10,000 or $20,000 then too if they didn't have to. So we'll circle back to that then too. We got a couple other topics here, but we'll leave those till next time here then too. We got, I think, our kind of a real fun episode next time. So we'll just surprise you with that. Make sure you tune back into the episode 5. Should be around Halloween. I'll tease you with that. We do kind of a question giveaway at the end of every episode. So our first episode here, we had what percentage of home buyers in 2023 were first-time home buyers? The answer was 32%. You guys, I think one of you got it really close to that. But we had one of you just give us a comment, give us a like, give us a share, whatever. Just interact with any one of our social media websites then too, and we'll put you in a drawing to win an Amazon gift card. Or if you got something else, other suggestions, we'd like to hear that then too, but that's something everybody can use. So question was to the public, but what was the historical average of first-time home buyers? So the correct answer was 38%, and our buddy at Wyatt 1497 on Yahoo. I think he's somebody's best friend here. No, I'm just kidding. But Wyatt, call us, let us know that you're interested or how to get a hold of you, and we'll get that gift card to you. So question for today, true or false? We'll make it easy. Give us a true or false on this. Is your data always safe when using free real estate websites? So is that true or false? Is your data safe when using a free real estate website? So that's all I got. You guys got any parting thoughts?
I don't believe so.
No? We'll have to come up with some parting thoughts here for the next one. So check back episode 5. We'll have some fun with that one then too. But thank you for joining in. Like, share, do all the things. You'll find us all over the place, and we will see you next time. Thanks for joining.